Did you ever put a couple of diffusers in your online shopping cart and then cancelled when you saw the total? I've been there, diffusers are crazy expensive. And to make it worse, many of the cheaper diffusers are not even QRD. They're just random patterns that don't really diffuse. That's why I built diffusers like this myself. It's a real QRD and it costs just €9 to make. Today I'll show you exactly how I made this diffuser step by step. The only tools you'll need is a table saw and a glue brush. We'll move quickly through the woodworking, and along the way I'll explain why diffusion matters and why this design really works. Before you start cutting, you need to lay out all the dimensions. I used a free program called QRDude that lets you define the dimensions, the well depths, the frequencies, and even an exact cut list. And by using such a program, you know that you have a real QRD and not just some random numbers. In the description below I will link to the program I used as well as the dimensions we used for this exact diffuser, but you can change the dimensions to adapt to your needs. The first step is to build a template that will basically be the negative of the actual diffusers we are going to build. And what you need is a flat board. I used a piece of kitchen countertop that I got as a free offcut from the hardware store, and we need some 2x2s that we will chop up into small pieces. First, I cut small pieces of 2x2. The different lengths will give us the different well depths of our diffuser. Next, I draw a grid on the board. The grid dimensions match the diffuser dimensions. I also mark the different woodblock lengths according to the plans from the QRDude software. Then I glue on the pieces of 2x2 and the template's done. I know making a template will cost like €5 to €10 extra, but since you will need a lot of diffusers like 10, 15 or 20 for a room, it will pay for itself. Why bother with all of this? Let me show you something. This is my recording room and I rely heavily on diffusers. Flat reflecting surfaces make a room sound hard and unflattering. Absorbers can fix this, but if you use too many, you will make your room sound completely lifeless. So now diffusion comes into play. Instead of simply absorbing everything, a diffuser scatters the sound and gives it back into the room. The result is that your room sounds smoother, it sounds larger, and it just sounds live and not completely muffled. Next, I cut strips for the wooden frame. I used 3mm MDF, it's really cheap and does the job. When you use a table saw, please keep your blade guard on and keep your fingers far away from the blade. Use push sticks and of course hearing protection. Now we have a bunch of 3mm MDF strips. Next, I will cut slots into the frame pieces, so later we can simply stick the parts together. The width of your saw blade should match the thickness of your material. Most saw blades are 3mm thick or 1/8 of an inch, so I used 3mm MDF so that everything fits together. I used the parallel fence to get the right position for the slots and used the miter gauge to get accurate square cuts. If this was not just a partial but a through cut, I would not use the fence as a reference, because your offcut would risk getting pinched between the blade and the fence and kick back, and that can be really dangerous. But this is safe since there is no offcut. I also use a stop on the fence to get the same depth of cut every time. You may note that the blade sticks out higher than the material thickness for these cuts. I do this to get almost square cuts. If the blade was retracted, the cuts would be pretty angled. Since all parts are symmetric, you can simply flip over every part and do the slot for each side. Now we have a bunch of slotted pieces that we can simply stick together to form the grid of the diffuser. My saw blade is slightly less than 3mm, so some parts need a bit of persuasion to get into place. Let's talk one more time about the difference between absorption and diffusion. Here is a clear way to see the difference. This is a scan from the Master Handbook of Acoustics. Absorption reduces the strength of reflections but also kills some life in the room. Reflection, a flat wall, gives you a strong, harsh bounce straight back. A bit like a mirror reflects light straight back. Diffusion, though, spreads the sound in both time and space. The reflection is softer, scattered and more natural. An analogy that I like to use is, imagine a disco ball. Light hits the ball and it is being scattered all over the room instead of having one big reflection. The good thing is you don't have to guess the dimensions or the working range of your diffuser. With QR Dude, you just enter size and frequency range and it calculates the exact well depths and widths for you. I even once used this program to design this huge diffuser in the back of the room. I had like a standing wave of around 442 Hz in this room. I measured it and I saw that I had a problem there. So I used QR Dude to design a big diffuser that was aiming at 442 Hz plus a big bunch of other frequencies. The program calculated the exact well widths and depths. And after installing this diffuser, I remeasured the room and the problem was gone. And that's the beauty of a real QRD sequence. It's not luck, but it's science. Next we cut our well bottoms. I used 4mm plywood. It looks a bit nicer than MDF. First I cut 70mm strips. I always try to cut off from a larger sheet so your hands stay away from the blade. At least use push sticks or push blocks if you need to work closely around the blade. Now we saw the strips into small squares that will sit in the grid later. Again, I used the miter gauge for accurate cuts and the fence to get the same size with every cut. Note how I don't reference directly from the fence but use a spacer, so that the offcuts don't get pinched between the blade and the fence and shoot back at me. Now it all comes together. I place the frame on top of the template. Then I insert the well bottoms we just cut onto the template. And before gluing the bottoms, I want to attach the sides. I use some hot glue to quickly hold the sides in place. And this is the back of the diffuser, so it doesn't really matter that the glue doesn't look pretty. All the gluing will be done from the back and be invisible from the front. Now that nothing moves anymore, we can glue the bottoms. I found the easiest way is simply to take a pot of wood glue, a brush, and simply brush the glue into the corners. Technically, it's not a textbook way to apply glue. It looks a little bit like a bodge job, but it will hold just fine. And the beauty of this is the template automatically sets the correct height every time, so you don't have to measure or adjust, it just works. Now let it sit for a while so that the glue can cure, then take it off the template and do the next. Oh, and if you like this, a quick like helps me spread the video to more people who are building their home studios. Now, to make diffusion effective, you need quite a bit of surface area. One diffuser is not enough, so I suggest you build 10, 15, 20 or even more of those. And if you do so, I would suggest that you build everything in batches. So cut a bunch of strips first, then saw all the slots, then saw all the well bottoms, then do all the glue ups, etc. And before you do a whole batch, maybe do 1 or 2 prototypes to check if all your dimensions are right. And don't ask me why I know that you should do this. And if you now think that buying 20 of these diffusers would cost you around €2,000, you know that you will save big by building them yourself. And you can be sure that this is a real QRD, so a quadratic residue diffuser that will work accurately and mathematically proven. Because lots of these diffusers, if you have a close look at them, they have a random pattern and not this well-calculated pattern. And by the way, I made a little frame for this diffuser just to make it look a little bit nicer. I would suggest, if you want to frame your diffusers, Don't frame just one, but stick, let's say, 4 or 9 together and make one big frame for all of them. First of all, you're going to save money because you need less material to make one big frame instead of lots of small frames. And second, you will keep the sequence of the diffusers intact if you place them next to next instead of interrupting them by the frame. I did exactly the same for the diffusers on my ceiling here. So that's how we build a QRD diffuser. It's pretty easy to do, it's really cost effective, €9 for one of these. And it's pretty quick to do, especially if you do them in big batches. So instead of spending thousands in a store, you just spend a couple hundred and get the same or even better result with your DIY diffusers. In case you haven't seen my DIY absorber build yet, I'll link to the video in the description below. Now thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this and see you in the next video. Bye bye, take care.